For 15 years, Jake Morrison had been farming the same land in Kansas. Every night, he walked through his fields to check on the corn stalks and listen to the cicadas sing their never-ending summer song. It was peaceful work that helped him clear his mind after long days in the hot sun. That Tuesday night began like any other. As the sun set, the sky turned orange and purple. Jake was walking through the east cornfield like he always did. He was going to fix the irrigation system when he saw something that made him stop right there. There was a person lying down between the corn rows. Jake's first thought was that old Bill from the farm next door might have passed out from the heat. He ran over and yelled to see if the person needed help. But as he got closer, he couldn't speak anymore. The shape wasn't a person. She was curled up on her side and her body was shaking. Jake had never seen anything like the strange violet shine on her skin before. She was wearing some kind of ripped clothes that looked more like metal threads than fabric. But what really caught his eye were her hands. She had 6 long, thin fingers on each one. And she was going to have a baby. Very pregnant. Jake stood there for a moment, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. A foreigner. A real extraterrestrial. At his farm. In Kansas. His practical farmer's mind wanted to say it was impossible, but his eyes told him the truth. The woman made a weak noise, almost like a whimper, that brought Jake back to his senses. She was in trouble whether she was an alien or not. He got down on one knee next to her. "Ma'am? Can you hear me?" His voice sounded steadier than it really was. Slowly her eyes opened. They were big and gold and there were no white parts at all. When she saw him, fear filled her eyes and she tried to back away. But she didn't have the strength. Her arms gave out and she fell again. Jake raised his hands to show that he didn't mean any harm. "Take it easy now. I won't hurt you. Looks like you need help." She stared at him, clearly not getting what he was saying. She was breathing quickly and shallowly. Jake could tell that her lips were cracked and bleeding. She was very thirsty. Jake made a choice without thinking too much about it. He carefully put his arms under her and lifted her up. He was worried because she didn't weigh as much as a full sack of feed. The woman made a scared noise, but she didn't have the strength to fight him. "It's okay," Jake said in the same calm voice he used with scared horses. "I've got you. Let's get you to a safe place." He picked her up and carried her across the field to his barn. His mind was racing, so the walk felt longer than usual. What should he have done? Do you want to call the police? The army? But she was hurt and having a baby. No matter what else she was, she needed help right away. Jake gently laid her down on some hay bales he used for the horses inside the barn. He took an old blanket out of his truck and spread it over the hay to make it softer. Those creepy golden eyes of the woman watched everything he did. Jake ran home and got some water bottles, bread, apples, and anything else he thought would help. She hadn't moved when he got back. He opened a bottle of water and gave it to her. She looked at the bottle as if she didn't know what it was. Jake acted like he was drinking. She reached for it with shaking hands as understanding flickered in her eyes. She couldn't quite keep it still, so Jake helped her by carefully tilting the bottle. She drank like someone who had been lost in the desert for days. She didn't care that water was running down her chin. Jake had to take the bottle away from her so she wouldn't get sick. He said softly, "Slow down. There's a lot more." He then gave them the bread. She carefully smelled it before taking a small bite. Then one more. She ate slowly but on purpose, as if each bite took a lot of work. Jake let her set the pace and made sure everything was within reach. Jake saw other things while she ate and drank. There were marks on her wrists that looked like shackles. They were round scars that looked like they were made by shackles. Her arms were burned. No matter what had happened to her, it wasn't good. The woman's breathing slowly got back to normal. Her strange violet skin got some color back. Her eyes started to droop after she ate about half of the food. Jake pulled over an old chair and sat down a respectful distance away. "You can sleep now. No one will hurt you here. I promise." He wasn't sure if she understood what he said, but she might have understood how he said it. Her eyes closed, and in a few minutes her breathing became steady as she fell asleep. Jake sat in the quiet barn, keeping an eye on a strange woman who had somehow gotten into his cornfield. His logical mind kept telling him this couldn't be real. But there she was, breathing softly on his hay bales, her belly rising and falling as she breathed. He stayed there all night to keep an eye on things. Whatever trouble she was trying to avoid, it could come after her. Jake Morrison might be just a simple farmer, but he would never let anyone hurt a woman who couldn't defend herself. The woman was still sleeping soundly when the first light of dawn began to come through the cracks in the barn. Jake stood up and stretched out his sore muscles. He had things to do in the morning, but he would keep an eye on the barn door. He had a feeling that this was only the beginning. Jake had just finished giving his chickens food when he saw something strange. It looked like the morning sun was getting dimmer, as if clouds were coming in. But when he looked up, he felt a chill in his blood. There were ships all over the sky. Not planes. Not choppers. Huge alien ships, dozens of them coming down from the sky like metal birds of prey. They were huge, each one easily the size of his whole farmhouse, and their hulls shone like polished obsidian. "Oh hell," Jake said, and the bucket of feed fell out of his hands. The ships came down right in his cornfield. The noise was so loud it sounded like thunder that wouldn't stop. Jake couldn't believe what he saw. Months of hard work going to waste under their landing gear. The corn stalks he had been taking care of since spring were flattened. In a matter of seconds his whole east field was gone. But he had bigger problems than crops that were ruined. The ships had ramps that led to people coming out. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, and their black armor covered them from head to toe. It looked like it absorbed light. They moved like soldiers with their weapons ready. Jake counted at least 50 of them, and more kept coming. The woman in the barn was the first thing that came to his mind. No matter what these things were, they couldn't be good news for her. Jake ran to the barn, kicking up dust with his work boots. He broke down the door and found her awake and scared. She was trying to get up, but her legs weren't working. She knew something was wrong when she saw his face. "Stay here," Jake said firmly, leading her back down behind some tools. "Don't make a sound and stay out of sight." She grabbed his arm with surprising strength, and her golden eyes begged him to let go. She was very scared. Jake stood in the doorway of the barn, his heart racing so fast he could hear it in his ears. He could see the armored figures spread out over his land through the opening. They were looking for something. Or someone. One of them, who was taller than the others and had red markings on its armor, walked up to the barn. The only thing on its helmet was a dark visor. When it got within 20 feet, a voice that sounded like a machine came from somewhere on its chest. "People. We are doing a legal search and seizure. You won't get in the way." Jake's jaw got tighter. He had been through a lot of tough times in his life. Stubborn cows, mean dogs, and even a tornado that hit his land years ago. He wasn't easily scared. Jake said, "This is private property," and his voice was steady even though his heart was racing. "You don't have the right to be here." The commander's helmet tilted a little, as if it was surprised that a person would challenge it. "We are getting back property that has been stolen. Not following the rules will have consequences." "Property?" Jake felt his fear turn into anger. "Are you talking about the woman I found in my field who was pregnant? She's not a thing. She's a person." The commander moved forward again. The weapon it carried hummed with an energy that made Jake's skin tingle. "Your understanding doesn't matter. Give up the Velen woman right away." Jake stayed in the doorway. Every part of him told him to get out of the way and let these things take what they wanted and leave. But he couldn't stop thinking about the marks on her wrists from the shackles. The fear in her eyes. How she shook when she took that first sip of water. Jake just said, "No." The commander raised its weapon and aimed it right at Jake's chest. "Human, you are making a..." A new sound broke through the air. It sounded different from the rumble of the black ships. This was stronger and deeper. Jake looked up and saw more ships coming down, but they were very different. They were bigger, and their hulls shone like gold in the morning sun. They had beautiful symbols carved into their sides. These ships looked almost royal, while the black ones looked aggressive and military. The soldiers in black armor quickly moved, pointing their guns at the newcomers. The commander had to pay attention to both Jake and the golden ships. The biggest golden ship landed in Jake's ruined wheat field with surprising care. A ramp went up and people came out, but they were wearing flowing robes instead of armor. They moved with grace and a goal. There was an old alien woman in the middle of the group. She was tall and had violet skin that showed her age, but she acted like a queen. Golden thread that looked like it was shining with its own light was sewn into her robes. Her voice cut through the tension like a knife when she spoke. The language sounded strange, with harsh consonants and melodic tones. But even without a translation, her meaning was clear. She was in charge. The commander in the black armor really did take a step back. Its weapon went down a little bit. There was a quick back and forth in that alien language with voices going up and down. The old woman then looked at Jake. A little thing on her collar lit up, and when she spoke again, the words came out in English. "I am the matriarch Valana of the Velen High Council. Are you the person who is taking care of my granddaughter?" Jake's head spun. Granddaughter? Was the pregnant woman the alien queen's granddaughter? Yes ma'am," Jake said. "She was hurt and all by herself in my field. I brought her here to help her," I said. Valana's big eyes looked at him closely. She got closer and her robes flowed around her. The soldiers in black armor moved aside to let her through, but they kept their weapons ready. "These slavers," Valana said with a wave of her hand, "say you got in the way of their work. They say you wouldn't give them back their stuff." Jake's jaw tightened. "Because she's not property. I don't care what rules you have in space. People don't own other people on Earth. We went to war over that." Both groups of aliens felt a ripple. Valana's face changed in a way that Jake couldn't quite understand. There was movement in the barn before anyone could say anything. The pregnant woman fell out, using one hand to hold onto the doorframe. She yelled something in their language when she saw Valana. Valana's serious look broke. She moved forward quickly and caught the younger woman just as her legs gave out. They hugged each other, with the old woman holding up her granddaughter. The commander in black armor started to move forward, but Valana's head jerked up. The commander froze when she said one sharp word. Then she gave orders that were very clear. The soldiers in golden armor moved quickly and efficiently. They surrounded the group in black armor and took their weapons without a fight. The commander complained, but Valana stopped him with a gesture. The woman who was pregnant was talking quickly and pointing at Jake. Valana listened, and her eyes stayed on Jake's face the whole time. At last she stood up and walked over to him again. "My granddaughter, Princess Lyria, says you gave her food and water. You didn't want anything in return. You stayed up all night to make sure she was safe. You stood up to armed soldiers to keep her safe." Valana stopped. "Why would you do this for someone you don't know? For a stranger?" Jake shrugged, feeling uncomfortable all of a sudden because so many people were looking at him. "She needed help. That's all I needed to know." Valana looked at him for a long time. Then she did something that surprised Jake. She smiled. "The Velen Empire has been around for 10,000 years. We have seen hundreds of different species in the stars. We have never met anyone like humans before." She gave her soldiers more orders. Jake saw the black ships being taken over and their crews being arrested. Doctors and nurses rushed to Princess Lyria and scanned her with devices that glowed and hummed. Valana looked back at Jake. "Your cornfield is ruined. This is not okay. We will fix it and more. Think of it as the first payment on the debt we owe you." "That's not necessary," Jake said. "It is necessary," Valana said firmly. "You have saved the heir to the Velen throne. We know how big that is even if you don't. Jake Morrison, your life is about to change a lot." Jake looked at the alien ships that had taken over his farm, the ruined fields, and the pregnant princess who was being cared for by doctors from another world. "Yes," he said softly. "I'm beginning to understand." Jake stood in the middle of his old, quiet Kansas farm and watched as alien technology changed everything around him in ways he couldn't even begin to understand. Matriarch Valana arrived, and within an hour, his property looked like something out of a science fiction movie. The workers at Velen moved very quickly. They sent out devices that hovered in the air and scanned his ruined cornfield with soft blue light beams. New plants were already growing where the black ships had crushed his crops into the ground. But this corn wasn't normal. The stalks grew in minutes instead of months, and Jake watched with his mouth hanging open as they grew to full height. He muttered to himself, "This is crazy." A young Velen officer came up to him and spoke into one of those translation devices. "The soil has been improved and made better. This season you'll get 3 times as much as you usually do. Think of it as a small way to say thank you." "Small gesture?" Jake laughed nervously. "You fixed it in an hour, which would have taken me months, and you made it better than it ever was." The officer seemed happy with this answer and went on to work with other people. Jake rubbed his face as he tried to make sense of everything. His biggest worry yesterday was whether the irrigation system would last another year. In his backyard he now had alien technology that made super corn grow. Valana, the matriarch, had set up what she called a temporary command center close to his barn. It was a building that had literally put itself together, with pieces fitting together like a puzzle made of light and metal. Jake could see her talking to different officials through the clear walls. The talks were quick and serious. Inside the building, Princess Lyria was sleeping in a medical pod. Jake had looked in before and seen her floating in some kind of healing gel, with screens showing information he couldn't read. The Velen doctors told him that she and the baby were fine, but they were both tired from what they had been through. Jake saw cars coming down the main road as the sun rose higher. There was a traffic jam near his house because of military trucks, black SUVs, and news vans. The government finally figured out that something big was going on. A group of soldiers made a line around the edge of his land. Jake walked over because he wanted to know what was going on. "Sir, you need to step back," a young soldier said nervously, holding his rifle at the ready. Jake said, "This is my farm. I'm not going to back down from my own land. A man in a suit who looked older pushed through the crowd. He looked like a government worker, all business and no warmth. Mr. Morrison? I'm the director of the Department of Defense, Mr. Patterson. We need to talk to you about the aliens that are on your property. Jake put his arms across his chest. These are guests. I asked them to come. Patterson's eyebrows went up. You asked an alien fleet to land on American soil? I asked a pregnant woman who needed help to come. The fleet came to find her. There is a difference. Matriarch Valana came up to Patterson before he could answer. Even people who had never seen an alien before seemed to respect her. Patterson really did take a step back. Director Patterson, Valana's translator said in perfect English. The Velen Empire sees Jake Morrison's land as neutral diplomatic ground. Your troops are welcome to watch from a distance, but if they try to get involved, it will be seen as an act of war. Patterson's face turned red. Ma'am, with all due respect, this is land that belongs to the United States. We are in charge here. And yet, Valana said calmly, your weapons wouldn't work against our shields, your planes couldn't get through our airspace, and any act of aggression would have consequences that your planet isn't ready for. She stopped for a moment to let that sink in. But we don't want to fight. Mr. Morrison's behavior toward my granddaughter has shown me something amazing about your kind. We want to have peaceful relations. Jake watched the standoff and felt like he was in over his head. He was only a farmer. He wasn't supposed to be in the way of the U.S. military and alien empires. Patterson took out his phone and made a few important calls. Jake heard things like executive level and immediate authorization. Lastly, the director turned back to them. Mr. Morrison, the president wants to talk to you. And with you, Matriarch Valana. We are creating a safe way to talk to each other. In less than an hour, Jake was sitting in front of a holographic screen in the Velen Command Center. Jake saw the president's face on the screen, and it was strange to see the leader of the free world look just as confused as he felt. Mr. Morrison, the president said, can you tell me how you became the first person on Earth to make contact with an alien civilization? Jake shrugged his shoulders. I found someone who needed help, sir. I didn't think about it much more than that. It looked like the president was having trouble with this answer. And now I'm hoping we can all work this out like adults. Or, aliens and reasonable people. Matriarch Valana spoke up. Mr. President, your citizen has shown us a quality we don't often see when we travel across the stars. He did it out of pure kindness with no thought of getting anything back. He stood up for someone weaker when he was threatened. These actions don't belong to a primitive species. With all due respect, Matriarch, the president said carefully, humans have their flaws. One act of kindness doesn't make us who we are as a whole. Maybe not, Valana said. But it does make me think of some interesting things. For thousands of years, we thought that Earth was home to beings that were too violent and divided to be worth contacting. But Jake Morrison didn't think twice about putting his own life on the line for my granddaughter. What could your species do if one person could do this? Jake moved around in his chair uncomfortably. He didn't like being used as an example. He had only done what he thought was right. The president and Valana talked for another hour about early agreements and rules. Jake mostly kept quiet and let the people who knew about politics take care of the details. But sometimes they would ask him what he thought, as if his thoughts really mattered. Jake went outside to get some fresh air after the call ended. The sun was going down and the sky was turning orange and pink. Now his farm looked very different. There used to be only open fields, but now there are advanced buildings. Along with human military observers, alien workers moved around, all trying to figure out this strange new world. Princess Lyria came out of the hospital slowly but surely. She had learned a few words of English and smiled shyly at Jake. Thanks, she said carefully, her accent strange but easy to understand. You saved me. You saved the baby. Jake's throat felt tight. Anyone would have done the same. Lyria shook her head firmly. No. For weeks, slavers had me. A lot of people see. No one is there to help. Just you. That hurt Jake more than he thought it would. He felt sick to his stomach when he thought about how people, human or alien, had seen her pain and done nothing. He said quietly, well, you're safe now. That's what counts. Valana joined them and put a hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. In Velen culture, there is something called life debt. A bond is formed that can't be broken when someone saves your life. Jake Morrison, you have saved 2 lives. My granddaughter and the baby she is going to have. That means you're part of the family. Jake blinked. Family? Yes. And family takes care of each other. The Velen Empire will keep Earth safe. We will share tools, information, and technology. But more importantly, Valana's face softened. We will help people find their place among the stars. Not because we feel sorry for you, but because you have shown that you belong there. Jake looked out at his changed farm and saw aliens and humans working together. He also saw Princess Lyria, who smiled even though she had been through a lot. He thought about how one small choice to help a stranger had changed everything. I just hope we don't screw this up, he said honestly. Valana laughed, and it sounded like wind chimes. Jake Morrison, that kind of humility is exactly what gives me hope for your kind. When night fell, lights from a dozen ships lit up Jake's farm. He knew he would never be able to go back to his old life, which was still waiting for him in his barn. The universe had called, and for some reason, a farmer in Kansas had answered. It had been a week since they first met, and Jake's farm was now the center of the world. In a literal sense. Jake woke up every morning to find more people at the edge of his property. News crews from all over the world, scientists begging to get in, and tourists hoping to see real aliens. There were military checkpoints on every road leading to his farm, and the sound of helicopters flying over his head all the time had become normal background noise. Jake tried to keep some kind of routine. He still woke up at 5 in the morning, made his coffee the same way, and checked on his animals. But now he did it while avoiding government officials who wanted to meet with him and stepping around alien technology. Somehow his farmhouse had gotten bigger. The Velans had used some kind of building method that connected their buildings to his. His small 3-bedroom house now had medical facilities, conference rooms, and living quarters for the Velan diplomatic staff. It should have looked strange, but somehow they had made it fit in perfectly. Princess Lyria was getting better. She had begun to wear earth clothes that the Velans had changed to fit her body. Most of the time, they were simple dresses that worked with her pregnancy. Most of the time she learned English by watching old movies that Jake had on DVD. She had already seen The Wizard of Oz 6 times, so it was her favorite. That morning, Jake found her on his porch with a cup of tea in her hands, watching the sun come up. The Velans had found earth tea and loved it. "Good morning, Jake," she said. Her English was getting better every day. "The sky looks great today." "Sure is," Jake said, sitting down next to her. "How do you feel?" Lyria put her hand on her stomach. "The baby is moving around more now. The doctors say this is a good thing." "She is strong." Jake smiled. "Do you know it's a girl?" "Yes. We can feel these things in Velan culture." Lyria gave him a serious look. "Jake, I want to ask you something. It matters." "Okay, go ahead." "I want you to be there when my daughter is born. In our culture, the first person to be nice to the mother should be there when the baby is born. They turn into what you call a godparent." She tripped over the word. "Is this okay?" Jake felt something hard in his throat. "Lyria, I'm honored. But I'm just a farmer. Your daughter will be a princess from another world. I don't know how to raise royal children." Lyria laughed, and it sounded light and musical. "You know how to be kind. You know how to keep safe. You know that doing the right thing is hard sometimes. These are the things I want my daughter to know." Before Jake could say anything, Matriarch Valana came out of the house with Director Patterson and a few other officials. They had been in meetings since early morning, working out the details of what everyone was calling the Earth-Velan Alliance. "Jake, good you're here," Patterson said, but he still seemed uncomfortable calling a farmer by his first name. "We need your thoughts on something." Jake got up and brushed off his jeans. "What's going on?" Valana said something. "We want to make your status official. You are known as the bonded protector of the royal family in Velan law. This is not an honorary title. Comes with some rights and duties." "What kinds of rights and duties?" Jake asked carefully. Torin, a younger Velan man who worked for Valana, brought up a holographic display. "As bonded protector, you have the right to speak to the Velan High Council. Your voice matters when it comes to diplomacy. You can ask the Empire for help or resources that will help Earth." Patterson got involved. "In other words, you'd be the only person on Earth who could talk to one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. The President and I both think you should take this job." Jake's head was spinning. "Wait a minute. I'm not a politician. I'm not a foreign minister. I raise chickens and grow corn. This is too much for me." "Is it?" Valana asked in a soft voice. "You made a choice that could have changed the course of 2 civilizations. You saw someone who needed help and didn't think twice about it. Jake Morrison, that is what it means to be a leader." Just like that. Jake walked to the railing on the porch and looked out at his land. He could see Velan workers in the distance putting together something they called an agricultural optimization network. This would change farming in the whole area. His neighbors were also getting the benefits. The farm next door, owned by old Tom Henderson, was growing better crops than it had in 30 years. Jake said slowly, "If I agree to this, I want some conditions." Patterson frowned. "Conditions?" "Yes. First, the Velen's technology doesn't just go to businesses and governments. It reaches the people who need it. Farmers, small towns, and communities that have been forgotten." Valana nodded. "Okay. What else?" "Second, my neighbors don't have to leave their land because this area becomes some kind of diplomatic zone. They stay, farm, and live their lives." "Reasonable," Valana said. "Go on." "Third, and this is important," Jake turned to look at everyone, "Earth doesn't need Velen help all the time. We learn and change, but we stay the same. I don't want us to lose what makes us human just because we can use cool alien technology." There was a long pause. Patterson looked like he wanted to fight, but Valana was happy. "You know how dangerous it is," she said. "Good. A lot of the species we've seen have lost themselves because they were so eager to move forward. They forgot who they were, where they came from, and their culture. It's smart of you to be careful about this." Jake said, "I'm not smart. I'm just being smart. Don't borrow so much that you forget how to work for yourself. My grandpa used to say. Even when dealing with aliens, this seems like good advice." Jake had the strangest meetings of his life over the next few days. Video calls with leaders from around the world. Talking to scientists about how to move technology from one place to another. He even held a press conference where he stood next to the president and tried to answer questions from reporters who acted like he had just won the lottery instead of helping someone in need. Lyria was always there for them. She had started to follow Jake around to learn about life on the farm. She was very interested in the chickens and spent hours watching them peck around in the yard. "They're so easy," she said one afternoon. "They want a place to sleep, food, and safety. It's not that different from what everyone wants." "Guess not," Jake said. "We all just want to live in peace and take care of our own." That night, Lyria began to have contractions. The Velen medical team jumped into action right away. Weeks ago, they turned Jake's barn into a state-of-the-art medical facility in preparation for this moment. Jake started to back away and give them room, but Lyria took his hand. "You promised," she said through clenched teeth. "You stay." Jake stayed then. The next 8 hours were the hardest of his life. The doctors at Velen were quick and accurate, but they always kept Jake up to date on what was going on. They broke down each step in simple terms, and they never made him feel dumb for not getting how their technology worked. Princess Lyria was very strong. She didn't scream or yell. She pushed through the pain with a strength that even the doctors were amazed by. Matriarch Valana stood on the other side of the bed, holding her granddaughter's other hand and speaking softly in their language. Finally, as the sun began to set outside, the barn was filled with a new sound. The sound of a baby crying. The doctors worked quickly, and soon they were putting a small bundle in Lyria's arms. The baby's skin was purple like her mother's, but her eyes were a lighter shade of gold. She was just right. Lyria said, "Jake Morrison," and tears streamed down her face. "Meet my daughter. Jaya is her name." "Jaya?" Jake said again, and his own eyes got watery. "That's lovely. It comes from Sanskrit and means earth. It means winning. She won because she lived. Because you gave us a chance to live." Lyria looked at him with a lot of feeling. "Will you accept the honor of being her protector?" Jake looked down at the little alien baby. Her little fingers were curled into fists, and she was trying to focus on the world around her. This little girl would one day be in charge of an empire that covered hundreds of worlds. But at that moment she was just a baby who needed people to care for her and love her. "Yes," Jake said softly. "I agree." Matriarch Valana touched his shoulder. "Then it's over. Now Jaya has 3 parents. Her mother, her grandmother, and her father on Earth. Nothing can break this bond, not distance, not time, not anything." Within hours, news of the birth spread across Earth and the Velen Empire. It came to stand for the friendship between their two groups. A human farmer is protecting an alien princess. The news loved the story. But for Jake, who was in his barn with Lyria and baby Jaya, it was easier than all of that. He had helped someone who needed it, and now he had a family he never thought he would have. Jake promised himself something as he looked down at Jaya's small face. He would do everything he could to keep this little girl safe. He would make sure she learned about both her Velen heritage and the human values that had saved her mother's life as she grew up. Some things stayed the same even though the universe had changed. Family, loyalty, and just doing the right thing. 4 months had gone by since baby Jaya was born, and Jake's life had become a new kind of normal. The farm was still running, but now it was also the main way for Earth to communicate with the Velen Empire and a number of other alien civilizations that had begun to take an interest in humans. Jake had adjusted better than anyone thought he would. He still got up early, did his chores and made terrible coffee that the Vellans politely turned down. But now he also went to diplomatic events, gave advice on how to get along with aliens, and spent his evenings holding a baby alien princess while her mother slept. Jaya was growing up quickly, faster than a human baby. She was already trying to say words and could hold her head up perfectly when she was 4 months old. Her skin was violet like her mother's and her eyes were golden. But the way she looked made Jake think of human babies. How she smiled when she saw him, how hard she grabbed his finger, and the little sounds of happiness she made when she was comfortable. This Tuesday began like most others. Lyria came out with Jaya wrapped against her chest in what the Vellans called a carrying cloth while Jake was feeding the chickens. Lyria said, "Good morning, Earth Father," using the name that the Vellans had given Jake. "Good morning. How is our girl today?" Jake reached over and tickled Jaya's chin. The baby made happy noises. "She's great. The doctors say her growth is going well. They think that being around both Vellan and human culture as she grows up will make her stronger." Jake smiled as he watched Jaya's eyes follow a chicken that was walking by. "She's already picking up the important things. Like how chickens are crazy little dinosaurs that will peck your boots if you don't watch out." Lyria laughed. Over the past few months, she had learned to appreciate Jake's dry humor and had developed a good sense of humor. "I never thought I'd find peace on a farm. But now this place feels like home." Alarms went off in the middle of a peaceful morning. Jake had learned to tell the different warning sounds that the Vellan security systems made. This one was the bad kind. The very worst kind. Torin ran out of the command center with a serious look on his face. "We have ships coming in that are hostile. Several ships, all heavily armed. They're sending out signatures from the slave trade group." Jake's blood ran cold. The same people who had taken Lyria were coming back. He asked, "How long do we have?" His heart was racing but his voice was steady. 7 minutes until they can use their weapons." 7 minutes. Jake looked at Lyria and saw that she was scared. Then he looked at Jaya, who was innocent and didn't know what was going on. "Take them to the bunker," Jake said. The Vellans had built strong shelters underground for just this kind of situation. "Now." Lyria said, "Jake, you have to come too." "I will. But first I have to do something." Jake ran to his house and got his hunting rifle out of the closet. It was old and probably wouldn't do much against alien armor, but it was better than nothing. He also took out his phone and called someone. "Tom? It's Jake. Start the emergency plan. We've got enemies coming." Tom Henderson, who lived next door, had helped plan for this very situation. The phone tree was turned on in just a few minutes. People who lived and worked on farms, ranches, and in towns within 10 miles of the base and had signed up to be in the defense force were getting ready to go. Ships filled the sky. They were different from the ones that had come before them. They were more aggressive in design and had a lot of weapon ports. They fell quickly without the careful approach that diplomats use. Jake put himself behind a strong barrier that the Vellans had built near the main field. Vellan soldiers with advanced weapons took up positions around him. But then something happened that Jake didn't see coming. Tractors and pickup trucks sped down the road. The first person to arrive was Tom Henderson, who drove his old Ford with neighbors in it. They all had guns like hunting rifles and shotguns. Behind them were National Guard units that had been stationed nearby, and their military vehicles kicked up dust. "Did you really think we would let you have all the fun?" Tom yelled and stood next to Jake. People kept coming. Farmers Jake had known people his whole life, like kids he had seen grow up, and even Betty Martinez, who was 73 and carried a shotgun that her father had given her. They all took their places, making a defensive line with both human and alien defenders. The enemy ships landed hard and their ramps fell right away. At least 200 armored figures came out. A speaker made their leader's voice sound loud. "Give up the Vellan princess and the person who is hiding her. This is your last warning." Jake got up from behind the barrier and held his rifle ready. "You want them? You go through all of us first." The commander of the slave ship looked like he was having fun. "Primitive people with chemical weapons. How cute. You can't stop us." "Maybe not," Tom yelled back. "But we are going to make you wish you hadn't." The attack happened quickly. The slavers shot at them with energy weapons that lit up the sky in the morning. But they didn't expect the combination of Vellan shielding technology and human strategic thinking. The farmers and ranchers fought smart by using what they knew about the land. They had been training with Vellan advisors for weeks to learn how to work together. Jake's property had become a fortress, with defensive positions that used every hill, building, and piece of cover to its full potential. Jake pulled the trigger on his rifle, and the familiar kick against his shoulder calmed him down. His shot hit the armor of a slaver and bounced off, but it made the enemy soldier trip. A Velen energy blast did the trick. The fight was a mess. The sound of explosions, people yelling, and the smell of burnt earth. From her spot in the old grain silo, Betty Martinez killed 3 slavers. Tom Henderson drove his tractor right into a group of enemy soldiers. The Velens had put a reinforced front plate on it, which turned it into a battering ram. The National Guard brought their own weapons and worked with Velen air support. Fighter jets flew next to alien ships, making a ballet of destruction in the air. The Velens and humans worked together as one. Jake forgot what time it was. It was all about the next target, the next threat, and keeping the ground they had. His shoulder hurt from the recoil of the rifle, and the noise made his ears ring, but he kept fighting. Then, thanks to Velen technology, Matriarch Valana's voice echoed across the battlefield. Listen up, everyone. The whole galaxy can see this battle on the galactic network. All of the civilizations are watching. Show them what happens when you threaten the Earth. Let them see what happens when you threaten my family. Jake looked up and saw huge holographic displays in the sky that showed the battle from different angles. The pictures were being sent through space and shown to many different alien civilizations. They were watching people fight with the Velens. They saw farmers and soldiers of all ages standing together against a threat. They were watching Earth not give up. The slave army started to lose strength. Their confident attack turned into a fight for their lives. They thought they would find easy targets, but they found warriors instead. The arrival of reinforcements was the turning point. Not just Velen ships, but also ships from 3 other alien civilizations that had been watching the broadcast. They fell into the atmosphere and shot at the slavers, changing the balance completely. It was over in less than an hour. The people who owned slaves were either dead, captured, or running away. Jake's farm was burned and damaged, but it was still there. Jake put down his rifle, his hands shaking from the adrenaline. People were cheering, crying, and helping the hurt all around him. Tom hit him on the shoulder so hard that he fell. We did it, Jake. Wow, we really did it. Lyria and Jaya came out of the bunker unharmed. She ran to Jake and hugged him with baby Jaya in between them. The little girl looked more upset about being squeezed than scared of what had happened. Matriarch Valana came closer. Her robes were burned, but she still looked like a queen. Today the galaxy has seen Earth. They have seen people fight with honor and bravery. They have seen you protect your friends without thinking twice. An hour later, Director Patterson arrived by helicopter. He looked like he was in shock as he looked over the battlefield. The president wants me to tell you that every country on Earth is calling. Everyone wants to know how a farm in Kansas became the safest place on Earth. Jake shrugged, tired. We took care of our own. That's what you do. The video of the battle spread across the galaxy over the next few weeks. Jake watched news shows where alien commentators talked about the fight and were shocked at how well humans and Velens worked together. Other civilizations started to reach out and ask for diplomatic relations with Earth. Not because they thought people were primitive anymore, but because they had seen something unusual. They had seen a species that would fight for their friends and stand up for what was right, even when the odds were stacked against them. Ships from many different civilizations started coming to Earth, all of them asking for official meetings. Jake's farm was still the main place to get in touch, even though bigger buildings were going up nearby. Jake sat on his porch one night with baby Jaya in his arms. She was trying to say his name, but all she could get out was Jaja, which made everyone laugh. Lyria sat next to him, and the other chair was taken by Matriarch Valana. You changed everything, Valana said in a low voice. All of this started with one act of kindness. Jake looked down at Jaya, who was playing with her finger. I didn't do anything different. I just helped someone who needed it. Everyone would have done the same thing. But they didn't, Lyria said in a low voice. Lots of people saw me. A lot of people turned away. You were the only one who helped. Jake could see the lights of the new spaceport being built in the distance. Ships came and went all the time now. Earth was no longer alone. People had taken their first real step into the bigger universe. Do you know what I think? Jake said, Jaya, and bounced her gently. I think we all get too caught up in big ideas. Politics, power, and land. We forget the easy things. Being kind is important. It's important to help others. Doing the right thing even when it's hard is important. Valana grinned. That's why Earth will do well, Jake Morrison. Because you remember things that other people forget. Technology and military power do not make civilization. It's based on times when people are kind to each other. Jaya made a happy noise and grabbed Jake's nose, which made him laugh. This moment was so simple, but it meant everything they had fought for. A time when a human farmer could hold an alien princess in his arms and call her family. A time when different kinds of animals worked together instead of fighting. Jake looked up at the stars, which were no longer far away. Now they were full of neighbors, friends, and allies. It all started when he saw someone who needed help and chose to do something about it. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can lead to the biggest changes in the universe. There was no doubt that Jake Morrison, a simple farmer from Kansas, had done it. The galaxy would always remember it.